Okay, so this is a quick review of graphing and things related to graphing, and it's really intended for like pre-calc or above students. So I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. If you're looking for more explanation, check out the links in the description because I have much fuller lessons that go into all the detail if you need it. So the first thing I thought that would be good to just review graphing real quick is plotting points. So I've got the point -3, 4, and 0, -2. So, okay, we're going to just draw our axes. And so here's my x-axis, here's my y-axis. And for the points, so this is your x, this is your y, and so then this is the positive direction. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This is the negative direction. This is, let's see, this is the other negative direction. So let's see, -2, -3. So just a reminder of how that all works. Okay, so for -3, 4, so I go on the x-axis to -3, 1, 2, 3, and then up on the y-axis, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's just your quick reminder of how that all works. And then for 0, -2, so the point 0 is right here. And so I go 0 on the x-axis and then down 2 on the y-axis, so that would be right there. Okay, so that's just your quick reminder of kind of how those axes work. And so terminology that we use a lot when we're talking about the graph has to do with quadrants. So you've got your x-axis, your y-axis. This part right here is called the origin. And these 4 pieces that the graph breaks into are known as quadrants. So this is quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's the direction that goes in. So just to like refamiliarize yourself. And then again, just in case you need it. So that's how the numbering works. You can pause the video and write that down if you need to. Okay, so this concept of ordered pairs or points comes up a lot, of course, when we're graphing. So just as like a quick reminder of kind of different ways that can come up. So let's say I want to find the ordered pair for an equation like this. So the thing I want you to notice is that ordered pairs are usually associated with an equation in 2 variables. So in this case, I've got x and y. So you can't have a point, if you just have x's or you just have y's, then that indicates that you have either a horizontal or vertical line. So very often, if you're trying to find like a fancier ordered pair, you're going to have an x and a y in that equation. And so you could be given the x, and so then you have to figure out what y would go with it. And so if I do that, so let's say I plug in my x, and then I just try to unravel this. So now I get 3 plus y squared equals 7, and then I can subtract the 3 to get that y squared equals 4. Now, you do, like this is pre-calculus, this is a pre-calculus or above review, so you just want to put your thinking cap on. Make sure that you're taking your time to solve for this. So I'm going to use the square root property here. So because this was squared, when I take the square root of both sides, the square root property says that you have to take plus or minus in front of that square root. So there are actually 2 y values that this would work for. Plus or minus 2 would both work in this equation. So you'd have actually 2 ordered pairs. The first ordered pair would be 1, 2, and the second ordered pair would be 1, -2. So it's totally possible you could have more than one ordered pair. Okay, so just to kind of get us back into that mode of working with ordered pairs, I thought it would be fun, to find a couple different ordered pairs. So you can just pause the video and just find 3 on your own. I think this is a good exercise if you haven't graphed in a while. Because by the way, we're going to graph these in a moment, so you want to choose something that's like easy to solve for. So maybe pause the video here and just try to find 3 points, the 3 easiest points you can think of, and then hit play when you're ready. So I can choose any 3 points that I want, and I'm going to make a little table here. And I want to choose points that are easy to calculate. So I actually want to have square roots that I can easily take. So I think the easiest x I could think of, the first thing that came to mind was -2. Because if I plug in -2, so of course I have -2 plus 2, that gives me the square root of 0. So that'll just equal 0. So that one's cool. The next easiest point would be 2, because then I get 2 plus 2, which is going to be the square root of 4, so that just equals 2. And then finally, so let's see, another easy point might be like 7, because then I have 7 plus 2, so that's going to give me the square root of 9, which is 3. So if you are trying to graph, a lot of times you kind of want to like game the problem in that you want to be strategic in what kind of points you're choosing. Okay, so that's one exercise. So let's do this just one more time. So finding 3 points. So here's another equation, 2x plus 3y equals 6. So the last equation had y equals. Now we've got just x and y kind of mixed in the equation. So anything can happen with these equations is kind of what I'm trying to remind you. So you just got to kind of use your noggin when you're doing this. Now, for this particular problem, I think that the easiest way to approach this would be to let x equal 0, because if you let x equal 0, then you're just left with 3y equals 6. And if 3y equals 6, then if you divide both sides by 3, you get y equals 2. Then the next easiest choice here would be to let y equal 0. So notice how, because I have both x and y, like just the setup of the equation, because it's a little different, it changes the way that I want to strategize how I find ordered pairs. So you just kind of have to like use your noggin, you know, think about it a little bit, strategize of what's the most efficient way to do this for this particular problem. And so in this case, now I'm going to choose a y first. And so then I'm going to have 2x plus 3 times 0 equals 6. Then I get 2x equals 6, so x will just equal 3. Okay, and now for this last point. So now it's just kind of like anything goes, I guess. So let's see. What if I chose something like, I gotta think about this. I'm kind of on the spot here, so I'm just going to choose a random point. So you could think about this for a little bit. I'm just going to choose 2, and let's just see what I get. So I have this equation now. So I have 4 plus 3y equals 6. So if I work this out, I get 3y equals 2. So then y is going to equal 2/3. So this comes out to 2/3. Like I said, we're going to graph this. It's a fraction. You know, I usually like to get whole numbers, but it's really not the end of the world if you get a fraction. So now what I want to do is I want to graph these 2 examples we were just working with the idea being that, like, if you have no idea how to graph something, you can always just start choosing a couple random points. So that's kind of what I wanted to remind you. Sometimes 3 points is not enough, but 3 points will usually get you started. Okay, so starting with the first example, so let me bring back that table. And let me just let me just draw some graph paper. Okay, and now I can just go ahead and plot some points, right? So I've got -2, 0, so that would go right here. 2, 2 is going to go right here, and then 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then up 3, somewhere around here. Okay, so now, so ideally what would happen now is that you would connect this. But the question is, I mean, do you know what the shape of this should look like? And so that's for another review video. If you forgot what the shape of a graph like this looks like, I will review that in another place. But if you can't safely tell what shape you need, then what my suggestion would be, if you're just really desperate, is to just plot a bunch more points. So maybe choose like another 3 points or something. But I do know what the graph should look like. So it's actually going to be like a curve going that way. So I tried to curve it as much as possible. So that's kind of the graph. And like I said, if you weren't sure, you would just graph a few more points until you were confident. Okay, so for this other example, so let me just bring in that table and some graph paper. And then once again, I can just start plotting some points. So I've got 0, 2, 3, 0, and then 2 and 2/3, which I will approximate as somewhere around there. So that's about 0.66. And you can use a calculator if you aren't sure of that. Okay, now for this particular graph, I know that this is going to be a line, so I know I can just connect the 3 points and we're good to go. Now again, if you aren't confident of that, just like plot a few more points to figure it out. That's kind of the simplest explanation I can give you, but we'll have another video where we review all the different graph types just as a crash course. Now, the other thing that comes up a lot with graphing that I just want to mention are intercepts. So the x-intercept is where the graph crosses the x-axis, and to find that, you set y equal to 0 and solve for x, versus the y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis, and to find it, you set x equal to 0 and solve for y. So I just thought as a good last exercise here in this review video, we could find some random x and y intercepts just to show you the different types of techniques that you might have to use when doing this. So starting with this first one, so I've got y equals 3x minus 1. Now this is just a line, right? Because this is an mx plus b form. So to find my intercepts, so what I really do is I just say, okay, I'm going to set x equal to 0. So I get that y equals -1. So my first intercept is this point 0, -1. And then for my other intercept, so now I set y equal to 0, so I have 0 equals 3x minus 1, and then I just go through the steps to solve for this. So I get 3x equals 1, x equals 1/3, so this comes out to the point 1/3, 0. So notice that I have two separate points, so this is very important. It's not -1, 1/3, right? It doesn't make one point. You are literally going through, you set one variable equal to something and solve for the other variable to get that singular point, and then you do it again. So just make sure that you're kind of keeping that straight. So I thought that this example would be a good one for you to try. So remember, math is not a spectator sport, so it would be a lot better for you to pause the video and give this a try and then hit play when you're ready. Okay, so I'm going to go through the steps. Oops, let me just switch my pen color. X equals 0. Okay, so I've got 0 equals the square root of y minus 1. Now for this particular problem, I just have to kind of use my noggin and all the math that I know to figure out how to solve this. So to solve this, I'm going to square both sides. So I get 0 equals y minus 1, and then I get that y equals 1 when I solve that. So this would be the point 0, 1 for my first intercept. Now for my second intercept, here's something kind of interesting. I'm going to set y equal to 0. I get x equals the square root of 0 minus 1. And now, ruh-roh, okay, so this would technically be equal to I. But we can't graph I, so the y-intercept does not exist. So when this happens, we just say, so does not exist. So we just have one intercept, 0, 1. And that's a thing that can happen. So you just have to kind of, again, rely on all the math knowledge that you have to figure out how you're supposed to approach some of these. All right, so one more time, I think you should pause and just try to find the x and y intercepts. Just kind of think about all the math that you know to approach this. So I'll go ahead and solve this. So I have x equals 0, so I'm going to set x equal to 0, so I get 0 minus 0 plus 2 equals y. So that's going to give me that just y equals 2. So my first intercept is 0, 2. Now, for the other one, I want to set y equal to 0. Oops, let me just note that. So my y equals 0. So I have x squared minus 3x plus 2 equals 0. Now, notice again, we've got to kind of just use our noggin and think about all the math that we know of how would I solve now in this particular case. So as you start to move up in math, so pre-calc and calculus and all that good stuff, random things get thrown at you and you have to just kind of think through your Rolodex of math knowledge of how to approach it. And in this case, I know this is quadratic, therefore I probably want to factor it. So just kind of mentioning here that anything can go with this. So I have x equals 2 and x equals 1. So this means I have two x intercepts, 2, 0 and 1, 0. And so now I have these three y-intercepts. Okay, and so that brings us to the end of this video. Just a quick review of some of the things to remember with graphing. So thanks for watching, guys. I will catch you in another video.